What do you see when you look at me? What is my place? To where am I confined? To whom do I belong? From which of my pursuits, dreams should I resign? I am she, bearing the image of the divine. I am we, an army done waiting in line. Ubuntu, do you think we've gone too far? I am because we are. It's the power of we over the power of me. Together we rise. Together we stand tall. Together no force of hell can surpass us all. We ride those waves of change with a twinkle in our eye. We walk on water when they thought we would die. The tide of history sweeps toward justice. The current of destiny pulls toward the brave. Can't you see when you look at me? This bird flocks together the way it should be. Battered, bruised, used, we rise. Watinta bafaz, watinti mbokoto, we rise. Strike a woman, you strike a rock. We rise. Creators, bosses, leaders, changers, we rise. There's more than enough room at this table. We rise. For you know we are just as able. We rise. What do you see when you look at me? Don't tell me. I'm already free. Come, rise with me. Through it all, still, we rise.
We rise, we rise, we rise. Happy Saturday. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited that you decided to join us today. I am on fire. As you can see, I'm rocking my shirt created by one of my elders in the community. And that shirt says, "Loving Her," because Black women deserve to be loved. We are celebrating Women's History Month. Who am I? I am Dr. Lamar Darnell Shields, and I am the co-founder and senior director of education and innovation at the Cambio Group. And we are an educational consultant, educational service agency where we develop high quality, results-driven professional development workshops, summits, keynote presentations designed to meet your school and your school district of their unique needs. Marina and I are so excited that you decided to join us today for the I Will Survive. In the back of my mind, I'm hearing, I will survive, or I will thrive. Celebrating women in leadership. This summit is the very first innovative summit that the Cambio Group has created live online. Now, we've done other summits, doing Ubuntu Summit, but this is special because we are honoring women. We are honoring the amazing women. And I want to honor my two children, Hadaya Ayodele Shields and Samira, my girls, my heart, my two children. I celebrate and honor the women that they are becoming. I'm excited that you decided to join me today, but I'm also excited that I get a chance to serve as the moderator for this amazing summit. You're probably trying to figure out, why is a man joining these women in the room? Well, you're going to find out. I have some connections, some deep connections to the amazing women, and I want to celebrate them because they are some of the dopest, baddest, fierce, amazing, courageous women on the planet. And today we're celebrating all women, but we have a group of women of color who are going to put it down today. Now, despite having more women than ever in leadership roles, today, too many women, you hear me? Too many women still experience doubt, imposter syndrome, which keep them from confidently pursuing what they truly desire at work, in the community, in life. Well, coupled with this gender gaps, there's also burnout. It's no wonder that so many women are undervaluing themselves and their abilities. And see, but no matter what society says about you, women, no matter what society says about you, today you will hear the stories that will ignite you. You will see women leaders translate ideas into action. You will meet and learn from women leaders on the front lines of progress. And you'll connect with the rich, diverse network of women who are breaking down barriers and manifesting their careers they want while making a difference in the world. So I'm going to pause for a second because I don't want to be stingy. I want you to share us with everybody. So I know you're sitting next to your phone. So this is what I want you to do. So before I go any further, before I give you any information, I need you to do something for me. I need you to call. I need you to text. If you got a pager, I need you to page somebody. I need you to IG somebody. I need you to book face somebody, Facebook somebody, whatever it's called. I need you to call your friends, call your family, call your colleagues, and tell them right now, give you a second, to join in this learning and networking experience intended to celebrate practicing and aspiring female leaders and to learn from their experiences. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. I'm going to just sit here, show off my shirt. Thanks, Olamina, for the shirt. I'm going to sit here for a second while you text some of your friends, because I know your phone is right next to you, because mine is, because people texting me saying they're watching the show. They shouldn't be. I'm trying to stay focused. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds before I go any further to talk about these amazing people. All right? Did you get it out? Did you get it all out? So let's get down to it. Now for our keynote speaker. You are in for a treat. My friend, my big sister in the struggle, Dr. Carsonia K. Wise Whitehead, is a professor of communication and African American studies, is a 3-time New York Emmy-nominated documentarian, filmmaker, and the award-winning radio host of Today with Dr. K on WEAA. She is also the founder and executive director of the Carson Institute for Race, Peace, and Social Justice, and the founding executive director of the Emil Francis Davis Center for Education, Research, Culture. Her scholarship examines the ways race, class, and gender coalesce in the African and American classrooms, as well as in political and social environments. Her work and her scholarship and activism is all over the place. But I'm excited because she was just recently featured in an amazing documentary called Fight the Power, How Hip Hop Changed the World. If you don't know me, that is my theme song. It's an incredible narrative of struggle, triumph, and resistance that was brought to you by the BBC on PBS. It is an amazing documentary. I would like to welcome my friend, my girl, my girl who fights all the time for what's right. She is a mommy activist. I want to invite my friend, Dr. K. Sit back, get your notepad, because you're going to have an amazing keynote speech coming to you.
Dr. Shields, for the invitation. I am delighted to be here knowing that those who have come before me have blazed a trail of excellence and brilliance. I remember when my Nana used to say that when you stand before your people, you stand on the shoulders of those who have come before you, who have blazed a trail to open up for you to follow. So I stand here on the shoulders of Harriet Tubman, who taught us that we must always move forward and never turn back. On the shoulders of Mary Church Terrell, who reminded us that as Black women, we have to be able to lift as we climb. On the shoulders of Mary McLeod Bethune, who said, whatever the white man has done, we have done and often better. And on the shoulders of my grandmothers and yours, who taught us how to stand up straight in a crooked world. They have shown us how to walk with our heads up high, how to look forward, knowing that we may not all get to the end, but we're going to get there. And it's important that we get there together. I am simply here to mark this occasion and to note that your life is an answer to a question that the world has been asking. Freedom fighter Angela Davis once said, you have to act as if it were radically possible to change the world, and you have to do it every day. We're standing here at the crossroads of freedom and equality. We are descendants of those who chose to survive. We are at an interesting time in American history because the moral arc of the universe that Dr. King and Reverend Theodore Parker once talked about is still bending. Now, it may not be bending as quickly as we would like, but it is still bending. We have not yet gotten to a place where the valleys have been exalted and the hills and mountains have been made low and the rough places have been made plain and every crooked place has been made straight. The universe, as Dr. King once said, is on the side of justice. But I believe the justice is taking a long time to get here. Now, it's a strange privilege to be able to sit and think deeply about freedom and about justice and about the question that your life is meant to answer. It's a privilege to be able to think about the fact that you are a part of Franz Schubert's Unfinished Symphony, understanding that the conversation has been taking place long before you got here, and it's going to continue long after you're gone. But your job is to make the conversation a little bit sweeter, a little bit better, a little bit more complicated as long as you are here. You must decide who you're going to be. What kind of world do you want to live in? And what are you willing to do to sacrifice to help create this world? We have a great responsibility because as the arc is bending, those of us who know the history or have lived the history or have studied the history must be charged with the responsibility to teach the history to the generations coming behind us. We must do our part to spark their genius. The genius that Dr. Carter G. Woodson, the founder of ASALH and Negro History Week, the genius he was talking about in his book, The Miseducation of the Negro. And we must do all that we can to seek to spark the genius in ourselves as well. Your life is meant to answer a question that the world has been asking. But to do that, you first have to answer the difficult questions. Are you using your time, your talent, and your treasure to make the world better? I stand here today as someone who was spoon-fed stories about Black history. I used to get my peas and my corn and my stories about the civil rights movement at the same time. I remember once saying to my dad, pass the biscuits, Daddy, and tell me what happened at the march. I would sit at my father's feet as a child and listen to stories about marching and singing, preaching and praying and sacrifice and struggle. When he sent me off to college, he told me that I had 4 tools in my arsenal so I can figure out the answer to the question the world has been asking, the one that my life is meant to answer. He said these 4 tools would assist me along the way. The first tool is that I had grit, that incredible stubborn ability to stick with the task, even when no one around you believes in the work that you have got to do. Grit shows up in the darkest of moments when you have got to believe in yourself and push yourself, even if you are the only one doing it. Grit. The second tool is I had talent. My father had immersed me in a print-rich environment. He plastered my walls with pictures of beautiful Black people so that the last image I saw at night and the first image I saw in the morning was Black people who looked like me. He used to challenge me as a child saying, I want you to memorize entire books of the Bible and speeches by Dr. King. I want you to memorize poetry by Langston Hughes and Sonia Sanchez and Gwendolyn Brooks. I want you to learn the words from the songs of Sweet Honey in the Rock. I challenge you to memorize those type of things. That's the talent he was stirring up inside of me. The third tool is I had opportunity. I attended Lincoln University, Pennsylvania, and was one of the few people from my high school that went on to college. College was never a discussion. It was never an option. It was the 13th grade for me. And I was taught early on that I was being prepared to do battle. And every soldier needed to have their books in one hand and their college degree in the other. My Nana said, no one gets a prize for just attending college. The prize comes from finishing and then from using what you have to make sure someone else finishes too. You use your life to make opportunities for other people. Grit, talent, opportunity. And the fourth one is that I have faith, which is something that gets worked on throughout your life. It is being able to, as Dr. King once said, take the next step, even if you cannot see the entire staircase. Faith is knowing that when you come to the end of all that you know, and you're getting ready to step out into darkness, faith is knowing that what you believe in, you will either have something very strong provided for you to stand on, or you will be taught how to fly. With those four tools, grit, talent, opportunity, and faith, I learned very early on that intelligence is not a substitute for integrity. And competence is nothing without character. And doing the right thing when everyone can see you and applaud for you is nowhere near as important as doing the right thing when you are by yourself. My mom used to say that her job was not just to purchase my shoes and my clothes, but it was also to spark my genius. It was also to set me on fire. It was also to set me loose into the world. She said I was supposed to be like David, running to meet the Goliaths of this world, confident that all I needed was one stone to knock down a giant. I would then be able to speak to a mountain that was in my way and tell it to move, and it would be gone. I would be able to spark my genius. And in doing so, giants would start to fall. Mountains would begin to move, and the question that the world has been asking would be answered with my life. Thank you so much. It is the work we have to do. It is the ability to believe in ourselves when no one else is doing so. It is using those four tools to move forward, knowing that our legacy will be built on the four tools that we have carved out and on what we've done with our time, our talent, and our treasure to make the world better. You're fearfully and wonderfully made, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Wow, I just got chills in my body. Dr. K, I know you had to run, but thank you, thank you, thank you. Listen, you got to check out Dr. K on the documentary Fight the Power, about the story of Public Enemy, my favorite group. I told my children when I transition, I said, I don't want no organ being played at my funeral. I want Fight the Power to be played in my funeral service. So when I saw Dr. K on that, I was blown away. Oh, thank you, Dr. K. Grit, talent, opportunity, and faith. If you all could see the green room, I'm watching my panelists in the back, ready to jump in just like Double Dutch, ready for it to happen. So I am not going to hold you any longer because I got to bring up the next person in the room. Listen, our first speaker hails from the state of Texas. She is a teacher, a motivational speaker, a trainer, author, and educational leader who is driven by a belief that all children, and we say all, we mean all, deserve a world-class education regardless of their cultural or economic background. Her proudest work has been that of school principal, where she believes her job is to support and serve the people who make the magic happen. She currently serves as the assistant professor at the University of Houston Clear Lake, where she believes she will make her largest impact, and she has been doing it. I got a chance to watch her rip up the stage in Savannah, and she speaks the same language that I speak. So I want to say, bienvenidos, come on into the room. Put your hands together for my sister, Dr. Q, Dr. Quinice Miller in the building. What's happening?
Buenos días, mi amor, todo está bien. ¿Cómo estás?
Está bien. Gracias, Doctor. Hey, that's kind of hard to follow. Your Delta sister laid it down for you, right?
Listen, Dr. K has me over here. Like, I just feel the energy, and I'm excited about what you have in store for us today. Oh,
well, welcome.
Me siento bien.
Well, welcome to the room. Just real quick, talk about you real quick, who you are, why you're here, before I bring up the next panel.
My name is Quinice, and Quinice is not just my name, but it is also my brand. And I'm here to serve people through love, through laughter, and through leadership. I am a professor, as you said, but I'm a mom to two beautiful, amazing children. And both my work in education as well as my work at home is my ministry. But all of that is wrapped up in loving people and loving others and not forgetting and never getting too inundated with all the distractions that we forget to love humans. So I'm excited to be here, and I want to say thank you to El Cambio, El Grupo del Cambio, for allowing me to contribute with these amazing ladies on this panel today.
Well, bienvenidos. We are excited you are here. All the way, we're all over the planet, all the way from the great state of Pennsylvania by way of Maryland. This is a sister who I've watched, who watched me grow as a facilitator, as an educator through a variety of districts. She's taken me wherever she's gone. They came after her when she was the superintendent in the state of Maryland. But as the poem says, still I rise. Our next panelist is a professor of practice and educational leadership at, yes, the University of Pennsylvania Graduate School of Education. She previously served as the superwoman intendant of schools in Queen Anne's County Public Schools in Maryland. Her tenure as a teacher and as an administrator in K through 12 schools in Maryland and in Virginia. She began in 1996 and ended in 2021, but she has never stopped. I want you to put your hands together for my friend, Dr. Andrea M. Kane in the building. Big Queen Kane. I don't call her Big Daddy Kane. Big Queen Kane. How you doing, sister?
I am doing so well. Thank you so much. Look, I need you every day. That's an introduction like no other. I love it. Thank you so much. And to my sister, Dr. Miller, I'm going to be in Houston soon, so I'm going to have to look you up.
You are welcome.
Awesome. It's so good to be here, Dr. Shields. And like you said, we have known each other for a long time. We go back to the 90s, I think. 90s or early 2000s, easy. Yeah. So down in Queen Anne's County. So I'm so happy to be here. Right now, I serve as professor of practice for educational leadership for University of Pennsylvania Graduate School of Education. I support and teach courses in educational leadership to people who are working on their master's degree and their doctoral degrees. And it's awesome. It's awesome. I have a good number of years in public education, K-12. I've done most of the jobs from substitute to superintendent. And loved it. So I started out in elementary schools. Obviously, I was a teacher assistant for a while, assistant principal. I did some work in school improvement. I led curriculum and instruction in a couple of different districts. And of course, as you mentioned, superintendent. But, my love is supporting learning. Right. So I just love instruction. I love instructional leadership and all the things that come with that. And all of them aren't good, but, we learn. And my MO is to support and serve. That's what I do.
I love that. Support, serve. You have a title that I wrote down, and I'm sure Dr. Marina Gilmore has written it down too, from substitute to superintendent. Substitute to superintendent. And so that is going to be your next book. So the next sister hails from the state right next door to me, from the Hoosier state. She's always fly. I've never seen her not fly. When you see her today, you're going to know what I'm talking about. Our next panelist is known for creating spaces for difficult discussion. Let me say it again. Our next panelist is known for creating spaces for difficult discussions. Why? Because she serves as the assistant superintendent and civil rights Title IX coordinator at South Bend Community School Corporation. She oversees the student services department and is executive member of the superintendent's cabinet, providing strategic leadership for systemic diversity, equity, and inclusion in internal and external efforts. As a DEI organizational development expert, she coaches, designs, facilitates, delivers, makes clothes for people, professional learner, cracking up, Put your hands together for Dr. Tessa Sutton in the building. Look at her looking fly. I want to know where you going after this. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. You're muted. I just want to know where you going after this is over. That's all.
I am just showing up today. This was just a really good opportunity just to show up. So I'm here. That was my plan today. But I just have to say, I too was so, I felt chills from the speech that Dr. K gave, because it really resonated. It brought it up from me why I'm in this work. And sometimes when we're doing this work, we get so embedded in the politics and the day-to-day things. But I tell you, when she spoke about when you take your opportunities, use the opportunities you have to make space and opportunity for others, I think we forget about that. But anyway, I am from the Hoosier state, and you described, I do make clothes. I just do, not really, but in this role, you do everything. But the bottom line is to be able to come in and serve. You have to really be able to not come in trying to be big and important, because that doesn't allow you to show up the way you need to show up and to serve. So I'm thrilled to be here. I love what I do, and I love being here with all of you today.
And I'm so glad that you stood in the gap. We had one of our facilitators pull out at the last minute. She had another obligation.
Mhm.
Our good friend, she should be Dr. Nikita Reed, for those that you are looking for. Tessa, you came through. You also talked about some of the challenges when you're hosting events and things don't go that way. So I thank you for joining in. Let me get you all ready for this next person. This is another person I go way, way, way back. You may see this phenomenal leader running, lifting weights, working out, or walking her dogs. I got a chance to work with her in Kentucky and in Alabama. Going to be working with her in New Orleans. She's always fierce and fit. She also represents Delta Sigma Theta. Who am I talking about? The superintendent of New Orleans. Her name is Dr. Avis Williams. Previously, she served as superintendent of Selma City Schools. Prior to Selma, she was assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction in Tuscaloosa City Schools in Alabama. Through her more than 20 years of experience and education, Dr. Williams has held roles as a principal, assistant principal, classroom teacher, and a coach. She was selected as the Alabama Alliance of Black School Educators Superintendent of the Year in 2020 and as a finalist for the Alabama State Superintendent in 2019. But you know what, people? She is in the building today. Dr. Williams, show off those guns. Where you at? Hey, Dr. Williams.
Hey there. Okay, so before I dive in, I appreciate you lifting up my dogs, Coco and Butterscotch, but I have a whole daughter too who happens to be here right now. And
Hey,
she pointed out that, the dogs, but not me.
Hey, look at the twin. Look at the twin. Is that her dog there with you?
This is my dog.
No, that's Diamond.
That's
Isn't that
Butterscotch. Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I've got two dogs and she has one.
Diamond's
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, but I'm so super excited to be here with these amazing ladies and just wow. Love Dr. K's keynote. And I will say that as much as I enjoyed hearing her, that was not my journey. Growing up in poverty, growing up, with a father who told me I would never amount to anything, in a situation to where despite the grades that I made, no guidance counselor ever talked to me about going to college. And as you know, Lamar, I ended up joining the Army, following my older brother and sister's footsteps, joining the Army, which I have no regrets serving the country, and landed in Alabama as a result of the Army. So the majority of my career was in Alabama, and I've had the privilege of serving as an elementary, middle, and high school principal in my career. And I just consider myself a servant leader. And, I'm glad we're having this important discussion about women leading because there aren't enough of us doing that. So I'm really excited to dig in and dive in and just really talk about resilience and how we can continue to advance as women in leadership.
Man, let me just tell you this, ladies. There's some guys right now who are so jealous that I'm in this space, right? I know I feel some hate coming along, but I said, hate motivates me. I feel it. So I'm excited that y'all are hanging out with me. And I want to just start with you. I know I was going to start with Dr. Kane, but Dr. Williams, I want to go with you first and Dr. Kane you second, because you sort of brought up something. Dr. Williams, we worked together for some time. I got a chance to watch you grow, watch you elevate. I've actually gone, first of all, do not run with this woman. She'll be like, yeah, we're going to run like a mile. Do not
6
run.
miles, easy peasy.
No, she's like Marina's mother. They'll trick you they'll turn their watch off and be like, oh, my watch wasn't running, so we got to run a little more. But I love, because we're going to talk about self-care, and that's an area that Dr. Q focuses a lot of time on. But, being a superintendent, I read somewhere that just 27% of superintendents are women.
Mm-hmm.
They account for 76% of public school teachers.
Yep.
And we also know that most of the public school teachers are going to be white women. While the vast majority of teachers are women, why are so many women not running the school district? Or why are so few women not running, able to run the school districts when we know the power that you all have?
Yeah, I would say that it starts off with just the basic bias against women as leaders. And in a lot of instances, school board members are those who are choosing superintendents. Sometimes it's the mayor's office and some other entities. But I would say right out the gate, and it's not any different than what we see in corporate America. And in some instances, education does better than corporate America, because if you think about the CEOs in most Fortune 500 companies, you're going to see very similar trends in terms of it being very heavily white males. So the bias that's there around women in leadership is number one. And then I would also add just there aren't enough of us mentoring, supporting, and pulling up women, which is why I love this amazing panel. And everybody's heard of the Good Old Boys Club, right? And we know that it's a machine, and there's a lot that happens due to those relationships within the Good Old Boys Club. And as women, we've got to make sure that we're forming that same coalition in terms of supporting each other, tapping each other, lifting each other up, going to colleges and universities and speaking to future educators, speaking to even our teachers and leaders within our school district about leadership. And then I would say the other piece is just that imposter syndrome that you alluded to, women not thinking they are ready. I've almost jumped through the phone wanting to shake some of my sisters when they're just like, I just don't know, I'm not ready. And they're brilliant, they're passionate, they're smart, they keep students first, and they're exactly what we need in education, but they don't think they're ready. And you take a man, on the other hand, he can have 40 or 50% of the qualifications and think he's ready. And the unfortunate reality is that there will be other people who see it that way as well. So I think as women, we have to build each other up, lift each other up in terms of knowing that we are enough. When I start reading off my resume, sometimes I'm like, it's ridiculous how much I have done, and then still get questioned about my qualifications or my readiness for a specific role. And we cannot let that impact the fact that we know that we are ready. We know that we can lead and lead to a level of excellence. And then we just have to mentor and make sure we're lifting each other up. So I believe that all of us have to spend a good bit of our time not only leading, but making sure that we're being that example and showing what it means to support each other and to create that tribe. And I'm super proud of the fact that I have that tribe. The adage that is lonely at the top is only true if you choose to be lonely, because there are some dynamic, amazing women superintendents out there, and we call ourselves our sister soups. Who we support each other, and we know that we have a soft spot to fall within that coalition anytime we need it. So I do see the trajectory starting to change, but it's not changing quickly enough in terms of the number of women who are leading districts.
Dr. Kane, I know you ready to jump in. We talked about go ahead, jump right on in. As a superintendent who went through many challenges, I watched you in the New York Times article. I watched how they drag your name through. I had to go find my sister Avis and Q and Tessa to find out that she was okay. You know, talk about your experience. Same question that Avis just responded to.
Yeah, so I just want to say ditto, ditto, ditto to the things that Dr. Williams just said, because it's true. Definitely there remain more male leaders in higher ed, you know, just like in K-12. And I agree with some of the reasons for that. One is definitely related to imposter syndrome, because sometimes we hear that we're not ready, you know, and that plants doubts in our minds, even though we have this long list of accomplishments and things that we've done that says, yes, you're ready. And yes, you can do this. And even when we have a support network, that imposter syndrome sometimes just sort of seeps in there. And we think we have to be overqualified. If a man has 10 years of experience, we think we have to have 20. We think that we have to outdo everything. Sometimes we as women tend to have this notion of we need to be perfect. We need to be overqualified, you know, in the work that we do. And men don't do that. You know, there's a saying, and I hope I don't mess it up, but, you know, males are bred to take risks, right? But females are bred to be perfect. And that is a real downfall for us, because we don't have to be perfect. Nobody is perfect. Men aren't perfect either, but we definitely have a lot to offer. And as far as my experience goes, as a superintendent, laundry list of accomplishments. You know, we had the first National Blue Ribbon School in the district under my leadership. I had 100% of my schools as green schools. We had so many accomplishments. We always ranked in the top 3, sometimes the top 5 in terms of student performance in our district, whether we're talking about English language arts or mathematics. You know, we had a record number of students because of some equity work that we did, who were accepted into advanced level classes, because you know that's an area where a lot of students, minority students or students who are traditionally marginalized, don't have access. And we did the work. We did the work to change those dynamics. We had equity on our agenda every single month. Whenever I met with administrators, equity was a part of the conversation and a part of the work. And in fact, we had every administrator, whether you were a central office administrator or a school-based administrator, have an equity goal. And that equity goal was related to improving outcomes for marginalized students. So we had this laundry list of accomplishments, yet and still a member of the community decided that I was what was the word? Indoctrinating students, which we know now is absolute rhetoric. But after the fact, I know now that that person started a whole bunch of foolishness so that they could have a political platform, which didn't work. Right? Let's make that clear. It didn't work. But, these are the things that happen as women leaders. But I think that, with support, and Dr. Williams mentioned it, you have to have a support network out there, whether it is just to vent or to seek guidance, and that support frequently, because there are so many men, comes in the way by way of male leaders. But thank goodness for a group like Sister Soups, which I did belong to when I was a superintendent, and I'm so glad that that's still going strong. There's an opportunity for women to relate, to support other women. We have to build each other up. I lead a women educational executives group every month out of the School Study Council at Penn. And I'm telling you, these are superintendents, school leaders, central office leaders that are going through. And I am just deeply, deeply grateful to be a part of that group and to be able to support them, because that's where it is. We have to support one another.
You nailed it. And I'm watching you all, and this is your wheelhouse, Tessa. We know women have long faced inequality in the workplace, while advancements have been made over the years. But we also know, and I want people to understand, that Black women have faced unique challenges in the workplace. What are some of the unique challenges that Black women face that we may not understand as men and other races not understand? what can organizations do about that?
Well, again, ditto to what everyone has said. I can connect in so many ways that have been described. But when I think about the unique challenges that Black women face, first, I can talk about it from a research side of things, and then I can talk about it from a personal experience side, that I didn't have to read it to understand it. I often work in what is called PWIs, and that is called a predominantly white institution, where you really, there's very few people of color. But the unique challenges that I have personally seen and also aligns with research are the stereotypes. We get stereotyped as the angry Black woman, as also there's this concept of us being invisible. The book by Minda Harris that talks about the memo. There's another space that I run into a lot, and that's access. If you can get access, and I heard many of you talk about our resumes, they really do look good. And we do figure out as Black women how to gain access because we're savvy like that. But those are some of the unique challenges. One, these stereotypes, gaining access, and microaggressions, fielding microaggressions all the day long and determining which hill you're going to die on. But one that I think is really critical, and each of you has said this, and that is the unique challenge of supporting each other. We have to get back to what Dr. K talked about, was using our life's opportunities to create space for others, because that is the way we're going to go forward, and not have the crab syndrome where we're pulling each other down. So those are some of the unique situations that we face. But how do we, I think, address some of those would be through networking. Being able to network and finding a space so that you can navigate those office politics, because people can see your talent. They have to work really hard to ignore you, because and it's done intentionally to close you out because of how powerful and strong Black women are. And then there needs to be to create systems in the Space Force. So whoever, I think there's critical in any organization that systemically we create space for these kind of conversations, not just a one-off type of training, but we have to create systems so that it's consistent and that it's an expectation. And I think we need sponsors, someone to speak your name. I watch people do it all the time, so that they know that you're not invisible. And then our mentors, they are the people that we can call when we need that support. So finally, I have to say this. We have to close out the noise. We have to close the noise, because there's always someone coming at you. There's always some kind of negativity. There's always politics. There's always a problem. But shut out the noise so that you can get back down to business as the reason why we've come to serve.
I love it. Well, speaking of someone who shuts out the noise, her work is centered around empowerment, and empowerment is many things. Empowerment, has agency over one's life. Women's empowerment or female empowerment is a process which means to influence or gain influence. So, Dr. Q, how do you empower yourself and the women around you to stay empowered in these spaces where they find themselves more challenged than other people may find themselves?
Absolutely. I love what my sisters have said. I think one of the main things, there's three things I think we have to do. One is to show up authentically as who we are. So long and so many times we're always wanting to show up for who people want us to be, who they think we are. But when we show up authentically, then I know for me, it empowers me, and it also empowers other people, other women around. It gives them the same permission to be who you are, because God created you for a reason, for a special assignment in this work. And when we don't show up authentically, we actually are not serving to the level in which we were meant to serve. Another thing is, I love what Dr. Tessa said, is closing out the noise. And so for me, what I do is I have very intentional mornings, very intentional time within myself and with my creator, and so that I can close out the noise. So within that time, I may meditate, I surrender, I cry, I laugh. I have those moments within inside me, because really that's the power going within us and understanding the power that works in us. So those mornings are very intentional, and they're every day. Like, I can't make it through a day without having that morning meeting. I called it Coffee with the Creator. We have our coffee, and it helps me to remain focused in on what the work is, what the purpose is, and what the passion is. And then I would say another thing around empowerment is, in this work, specifically as educational leaders, we're always giving. We're always, people are always pulling. We're always serving. And unfortunately, we sometimes forget to do that for ourselves, right? So how do you do that? You can do that in different ways. For me, I read, I walk. One day I'm gonna be on Oprah, and she's gonna say, "How did you get here?" I'm gonna say, "Baby, I walked here." Why? Because walking helps me mentally, it helps me spiritually, it helps me physically, but it's loving me, right? And so I think that those three things are super important for us to be able to not just empower ourselves, but when we do that, what we don't realize is, we sometimes teach what we think, we often teach what we know, but we always teach who we are. And when we show up authentically being empowered, then that is a model in teaching other women around us to do the exact same thing. So that's how I feel like we can empower each other and ourselves.
Well, I definitely love that. Thanks, Dr. Q. I know, I love what you talked about, taking time for yourselves. I also know the pressure that women have when it comes to self-care. Yesterday, I did a session with the U.S. Dream Academy. It's called Self-Care for Those Who Care for Others. I know, Dr. Williams, jokingly, I talked about you working out, and literally, I have run with this woman. We are not making this up. So how do you balance work-life responsibilities, and how do you unplug? And Dr. Kane, I would like to hear from you as well, because coming from being a superintendent, now being a professor, and also a mom as well, I would like to hear from you as well. But Avis, how do you unplug and balance work-life responsibilities?
Yeah, so for me, it's about really being intentional. I value my peace of mind, state of mind, my wellness, and I let people know that I value it. So I'll tell someone if they're texting me or emailing me late on a Friday evening, "Hey, get with me on Monday morning," or I'll ignore it and just say, it was the weekend and I was enjoying some me time. And I'll tell people that. I mean, I'm unapologetic about valuing the time that it takes to ensure that we're recharging and preparing, but also just the time that it takes to be intentional about balance. When I say this, I'll even share this with board members. Hey, I didn't text you back or whatever because it was the weekend and I was enjoying some downtime. One thing that I have learned about is just the idea of a really nice bubble bath. And it's actually called a goddess bath. But it's just where you just really, again, just get your music and get your beverage of choice or a movie or whatever you want, and just relax and just really enjoy that time to recuperate and recharge. And it has to be intentional. It really has to be intentional. And like I said, for me, I'm unapologetic about it. I don't feel like I owe anyone an explanation if it's after hours or the weekend and I'm prioritizing me. And I expect my team to do the same thing. And I'll say that again, I expect them to do the same thing. So when it's at night or the weekend and I'm working and planning emails, I'll use the schedule app to make sure they don't get it until 8 o'clock the next morning or 7:30 the next morning, whatever the time may be. But where I'm not emailing them, because, you know, when the superintendent emails you, you think you have to like jump right on it. And in my mind, I'm doing it just to get it out of my head and to get it off my computer, but people don't see it that way. So out of respect for their time, I model it by also making sure that I'm scheduling those things where they're doing work hours and not impeding people's personal time when it's just not that urgent. So it has to be intentional. And I believe it also has to be unapologetic, because we can't give what we don't have. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And, you know, self-care, wellness, mental health, state of being, all of that has to matter.
Dr. Kane, how do you unplug, and what do you do to sort of take care of yourself?
So first of all, preach Dr. Williams. First of all, let's say that, because you are right on with all of those things. You know, I like a number of things to unplug. My main thing is gardening. I love to grow herbs and peppers and tomatoes. And last year I toyed around with potatoes, right? So I know what to do. And so this spring I'm getting ready to get started. So I'm excited, right, about that. That's my love. I love to walk outside. If I can be outdoors, I'm good. But, you know, when you talk about balance, I frequently say balance to me, you know, is a farce. Right. I have not been able to master balance, but what I am able to do is some bit of integration. So I look at integration and priorities. So integration really is whenever I can incorporate my personal with my professional, for example, right? And then that way, it's not like I'm having to say, I got 10,000 things to do that are work. If I can incorporate personal into that and vice versa, that works for me. So I look at integration. But then I also look at opportunities to prioritize. What's the most important? If I got 5 things that I have to do, I have to look at something as having priority over another, because it's likely that I won't be able to do all 5 of those things, or at least not do all 5 of them well, especially when we're talking about deadlines and time commitments and things like that. So I'm pretty realistic about time and integrating work with my personal. And I don't have any little kids. My children are all grown. I don't have grandkids and all that kind of thing. So I can do, you know, what I need to do in order to prioritize my responsibilities. And I'm a responsibility. I am important. And I think that when it's time to shut it down, then it's time to shut it down. And like Dr. Williams, I would tell my team, number one, if you married, your job is to stay married. Right. So this job cannot take over your entire life such that you're having trouble at home, because you can't have trouble at home and work.
You need to repeat that. Somebody need to hear. I'm seeing some hands snapping. Can you repeat that other part? Because
if you're married, stay married. That's your job. You know, this work cannot take over your entire life. You're going to have problems at work. It's just people bring problems. That's just the reality of it. And you cannot function if you got trouble at work and trouble at home. That's a problem, right? So make your own self a priority, make your loved ones a priority, and to the degree that you can, integrate the two. You know,
well, Dr. Kane just turned into Iyanla Vanzant real quick. I just felt the spirit of Iyanla Vanzant on the couch talking to Oprah. Your number one priority is not to manage a $25 million budget, Dr.
That's
Sutton.
right.
Your number one priority, Dr. Williams, is not to be running 28,000 miles. Your number one priority is to do what's important to you. I love that because we all need to hear that, because we're so caught up in our work that when that work stops, then who are we as a person?
Exactly.
With that being said, you know, in my introduction, I talked about imposter syndrome. I talked about self-limiting beliefs. And I know, because I have my daughters, I'm not saying that my son does not go through this, but I've watched the women in my network, the women that are close to me, Dr. Tessa and Dr. Q, where they struggle with these self-limiting beliefs. They struggle with these stories that they keep telling over and over self in their mind. They struggle with, and I'm so glad Dr. Williams, if she had time, she would get into it, the things that her dad said that she would not be, but she became the opposite. The things that they tried to do to Dr. Kane, and I know what she's talking about, the woman who tried to bring her down and run for political office, but I like to let people know, we got a Black governor. I'm gonna just leave it right there. I'm gonna leave it right there. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Google. So Tessa, Dr. T, Dr. Q, what are some self-limiting beliefs you had to overcome? Because people look at you all as these superstars. They don't think you have any flaws. They look at your hair, they look at your glasses, they look at your makeup, they look how you dress, but they don't know that, as the kids say, the struggle is real. I want to start with you, Q. What are some things that you've done to overcome them? And then Tessa, I want you to follow up.
That is so interesting. So I am a bilingual Black woman. I have taught Spanish, ESL, bilingual from K all the way to 12th grade. I have been an elementary and a secondary principal. I've been an executive leader at the district level. I have a PhD. I am an author. I could go on and on, like these ladies said, but still, I think I've thought that I'm not enough, that's just not enough. And who am I? Why would anyone want to bring me into their district? Why would anyone want to read my book? Why would anyone want me to lead this group of people? And that thought, I have a friend that said, once you start to walk in God confidence and it's not in yours, you're gonna get to another level. And so my favorite poem, and I know you all have read and heard this poem before, by Marianne Williamson, where she says, our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. It's our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. This is the part. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, famous? Actually, who are you not to be? So in this space, now as a assistant professor for educational leadership, I'm always reminding myself and reminding leaders that they are enough. And sometimes you have to hear that from other people, unfortunately. So now as I do my speaking and consulting, Q is my name. Quinice is my name and my brand, because it continues to remind me that I am enough, just the Q alone. And so it's not our job all the time to trying to figure that out. It's not our job to figure that out. It's our job to be who we were made to be. And so, I just, that's for me. And every single day I have to remind myself, you're enough. You're enough, because what's in me is enough. Q is thrown off. Let me tell you, I'm real thrown off. Okay. And I have a lot of things that I am constantly trying to work on, baby. I get in that room. My daughter told me the other day, don't you need to go to your prayer room? I said, yes, ma'am, I do. I need to get right. However, I may not be enough, but he that works in me is enough. And this work is about serving. This work is about loving. This work is about leading. So I just get in the passenger seat. And that's hard for leaders. It's hard to get over in that passenger seat and know that what is in me is enough. Every day, I have to remind myself.
Dr. Q, Tessa, come on in.
So I'm going to come at this from, when I think about what are some self-limiting beliefs that I've had to overcome. Well, one, first of all, is going into an environment or space with the expectation that it will affirm me. That is a self-limiting belief. I don't go into the workplace, number one, for it to do something that it was not designed to do. And that is clearly self-limiting. The job cannot be my only stream, and it cannot be fulfill everything I do or who I am and what I believe. I believe I have to have several streams in order to be able to deal with some of these limiting factors. But early in my career, I often second guessed my voice. Not that I didn't think I had something to say, but, would I be heard? Especially because, as I stated earlier, that I worked in these PWIs and you have this expectation of affirmation. That's not necessarily always going to happen. And that should not be the reason why you're doing or a great job or why you're doing whatever it is you're doing. And when you have that type of expectation, it creates caution, it creates, it leaves you unfulfilled, and it can create a lot of stress. And so those are some of the self-limiting beliefs going in, thinking the job is going to do something that needs to be worked out at home with my family, with my friends, and with my choices. So getting that clear and straight really turns, shuts down the noise and gets me on the right track to whatever it is I need to do and what God has called me to do. And some of the things that I had to do to work through that would be journaling, unwrapping all of those experiences, those voices, because remember, we're all breathing the smoke. Whatever those stereotypes, those beliefs, people have, their own agendas. So doing the journaling, talking with my father, my family, it really gave me clarity and removed a lot of that noise. And so that I could really focus on the mission and the purpose of what I have to do in life.
I love that. I love that, Dr. Tessa. You went back and you talked about your early part of your career and some of the things that you dealt with. You all are powerful women where you are right now. But we need to go back to what I call like the origin story. I want to go way, way, way back. Now that you're in this position, and now that you're leading right now, I want to go with Avis. What's one thing you wish you had known before you got the keys to the city? Because I always tell people, the person with the most keys, Tessa, in the building, that person is the most. It's not the principal or the super. Whoever got the most keys, they control things. Because if Dr. Williams get locked out, she calling that engineer, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Jones. I'm gonna run like 10 more laps until you get here. But again, before you got the big office and you jumped up and down and you celebrated, Dr. Williams, what's one of the things you wish you had known before you began, just maybe even your career coming in as an educator and then moving on up the ladder?
Yeah, so I would say for me, the power of self-reflection and thought partnership. And I put those two together for a reason, because in leadership, we often feel like we have to have all the answers, right? And even when we don't have them, we feel like we have to get them quickly, right? Like we're under the gun. But one thing that was told to me by one of my mentors is that there are very few decisions that have to be made quickly. Right now, we all know that crisis and emergencies are completely in a category on their own in terms of when there's imminent danger or lives are in danger. But we also know that the majority of the decisions that we have to make as leaders don't fit into that category. And so one thing that I wish I had practiced more early on is just that power of self-reflection. The idea of sitting with a thought partner, talking things out, talking things through, leaning on the experiences and strengths that people who came before me have, and then just taking all of that into consultation. I've learned how to do that, but even today is still something that I have to remind myself of, because we have this thing, and one of our amazing speakers said it, where we think we have to be perfect, right? And that thing in your head that makes you feel that way will push you to make decisions quicker than what you need to make, where you don't collaborate as much as you need to, or you don't engage and get all of the facts and all of the data that would actually be more helpful in terms of ensuring that you land at the right spot when you make that decision. So, and again, this is an ongoing piece for me. I had a situation recently where I had to take a step back and rescind a decision that I made because I did not spend enough time reflecting and collaborating and talking to my thought partners about it. So I would say that if I had it to do all over again, I can think of some key spaces where I made decisions where, thinking again that I was under the gun, but not realizing that the decision can wait until I have all of the facts, all of the data, all of the people at the table, so that people don't feel like you're doing something to them, but rather for them and with them, and that they're a part of that decision-making process. And like I said, ongoing, I have to keep telling myself that in my head, the world is not going to fall apart if you don't give somebody an answer today, or within the next 3 hours, or whatever the case may be. And people will make you feel that way. There's this phenomena called the glass cliff. I know we've all heard of the glass ceiling, but the glass cliff is where, as women and women of color, Black women in particular, we get in these situations and we feel like we're on this balancing act, and if we make the wrong decision, we're going to fall on that glass cliff. And there are people who are waiting on us to do that. Right. And I think it's incumbent upon us to not fall for that, and to make sure that we're being thoughtful, intentional, collaborative, and reflective as we make decisions.
What I love about what you're saying, because we've had great conversations where I had to talk you off the cliff, and she was like, they don't pay me enough to do that. I won't mention the district, but I remember talking to Dr. Kane. I was like, where's Waldo? Where's Dr. Kane? They don't pay me. And I used to tell my parents, listen, they don't pay me to raise your child, okay? I love what I do, but they don't pay us enough. Dr. Kane, early in your career, what are some things you wish that they would have given you this playbook? And if they gave you the playbook, would you have taken the job? Let's be honest.
That's the question. So yeah, I would have taken the job, because I did what I wanted to do. So, needless to say. But what I wish that I had known earlier is the power of a network. Right. So for so many years, you work hard. Yes, you have a team around you, but you still are being a leader. You still are being a leader. And what I now know is that the power of a network can support you when you are at your wit's end. The power of a network can show up when you just need somebody to show up. The power of a network can give you some guidance and get you on the right track if you might be veering off or prioritizing something that really isn't the right thing to prioritize. And they just love you. They just love you, unconditionally, and they're not going to see you go down the wrong road. They're not going to see you struggling by yourself. In one of the districts I worked with, we had a change. I was leading curriculum and instruction at the time, and we had a change in our leadership, our superintendent. And somebody said to me, oh, so who's going to be looking out for you? Who's going to be your cover, now, as they were walking out the door, not the superintendent. But I was thinking like, well, like, what are you talking about? Well, you know what? I get it now. I get it. All of these years later, there has to be, ladies, we have to support one another. We have to cover one another when somebody is under attack. And if you haven't been, you will be. Just stay in this game. You will be. There is a network out there to support you. You don't have to feel like you're not enough. You don't have to feel like you don't know what you're doing. You don't have to feel like, oh my gosh, am I crazy? Am I the only one who's thinking like this? This is real stuff. This is real talk. Right? You are enough. And somebody just put it in the chat. Yes, you are enough, and you are not crazy, and your network will support you through. So I found that whole notion of the power of a network, what goes around comes around. You give to a network, you receive from a network, and you just build a new family. And it's so absolutely critical for executive level leaders. Hey, let's talk about leadership at any level. Particularly if you are a marginalized female. I don't care what category that puts you in, whether it's LGBTQ, if it is you are a person of color, whatever. If there is some ability or disability, whatever it might be, you need a network.
Dr. Shields, can we just pass the collection plate virtually? I'm not sure. I feel like I need to sew into this word.
Let me just tell you guys, and I know Tessa and Q, you about to come in. People are texting me. I'm like, I'm working here. Like I'm working. The Amen Corner. I'm talking all types of people, not just people of color. I just think it's so powerful what you're saying, because I remember going into a space, and I remember a principal saying to us, and I want to thank all of you, because Dr. Kane, Dr. Tessa, and Williams, you have poured into the Cambio family. You poured and blessed the Shields family. So I want to thank y'all publicly right now. Y'all know what I'm talking about by allowing me to come to your district. So I got to put that out there. And I remember going to a district, and one of the principals, Tessa, she said she remembered when she became a principal, one of the guys came in and said, are you the principal? And she was like, yes. And the guy said, of the whole school? I was like, Oh, did you just say she the principal of the whole
Yes.
school? Like,
That's
no,
right.
just this corner over here. I'm the principal of this corner, and then they let me come out of my room. You all probably heard that, quite. I've gone into spaces as a male of color who's a Dr. Shields. I might have jeans on, Tim's, and they've come out. Look at where's Dr. Shields, and I know it's different for us. And so, Dr. Tessa, let me hear. Starting this work, because you having those courageous conversations all the time. What are some things that you wish you had known before you started doing your work? And then Q, we're going to close out with the same question.
Well, I'm going to say very simply, don't pledge allegiance to the clique. And the reason I say that is because as soon as you start to pledge allegiance to the committees or the groups of the people who want you to do what they want you to do. Now, don't get me wrong. You work in an organization, but you need to be able to serve and go against the grain, especially when you're focusing on equity, diversity, and inclusion. People are not always ready for what you have to say. People have to work through their biases. People, whether it's male, female, or what have you, people are not always comfortable with change. And so if you can fail to pledge allegiance to the clique, then you can be used, then you can serve. Otherwise, you may as well just join the troops. And, I think one of the things that I needed to learn early was to get past people and not be worrying about what other people think. Mostly, it's about increasing my capacity to be effective with others. And it's not a matter of whether I like you. It's not a matter of you like me. What it's about is, can we get the job done? I think we spend way too much time focusing on whether someone's going to like me or to want to pull me in and be on their under their agenda. In this work, you are going to have to stand alone. In this work, there are going to be some people who are uncomfortable. So those are some things that I wish I had learned really early, but now I do. Don't pledge allegiance to the clique, and be able to get past people and increase your capacity to be effective with others. So I just think those are really key pieces in the work that I do.
Dr. Q, you need one of them church nurses to bring you some of that Holy Ghost Kool-Aid to wake you up.
Let me tell you, the Lord knows what you need when you need it. Hashtag don't pledge allegiance to the clique. That needs to be a whole hashtag. And substitute to superintendent. What I wish I would have known about leadership in general was that it's not about me. Leadership is not about you. It is not about your position. And I remember wanting to go into schools as a principal, as this turnaround principal. And the reality is, I'm not a turnaround principal. That is special ministry that some people have it and some people don't. And I wanted to do that because that was the thing, but the reality is my gift and my strength was people, was culture, was creating an environment where everyone felt included and valued and loved. And when you're doing turnaround work, not that those things are not important there. However, the focus is a little different. And I'm sure some of my superintendent colleagues can speak to that here. But it's not about you. Right. And so when you understand what are your strengths, what is your contribution to this work to ensure that all children have an exceptional educational experience. And once you identify that, then what I wish I would have understood is that fit is important. And a lot of leaders that I coach and that I teach want just the job. They want to just get the job. They want to just, I just want to be an AP. I don't care where it's at. I don't care who you want me to be an AP for. I want to be a soup. I want to be this. I want to be that. And they move into that space because that's about them, right? But when you get into spaces that is not where you're supposed to be, leading then you do people a detriment. You do those that you serve a disservice because you are not operating, again, authentically as who you are. And fit goes both ways. It's not just you want to be a fit for whatever organization you're leading in, and you need that organization to be a fit for your life, for that marriage, for those children, for where you live, for your family, for what it is that you want and desire to do, right? And so that goes both ways. I wish I would have understood that prior, because when it was about me, making things about me, then again, you don't do a service to those that you've been charged and privileged to lead.
Speaking of leading, Dr. Williams, you've led in how many districts now? 3 districts?
Yes. Assistant superintendent in 1 and superintendent in 2. Yeah.
So since we're talking about leading and we're talking about challenges, have you experienced resistance when leading men? Talk to me about the men. How do you, and look at all the women shaking their head. I'm going to take all the hits for all the men that are here. So so have you experienced resistance leading men? If so, how have you handled it?
Actually, I have not. And this is really interesting, a very interesting question, because, and I still have a difficult time processing this phenomena where women think they need a man to lead. And I'll give an example. In my previous district, there was a point where we had 2 principal positions that were vacant. And at one of the schools in particular, when we asked them, what are you looking for in your next principal? The top thing was, we need a man. Which I was, a bit taken aback, and I said, well, what leadership qualities? And everything else was very thin and very superficial in terms of qualities. But the primary, attribute was being a man. In my current role and in previous roles, of course, I don't work with nearly as many men as I do women, simply because the field of education is predominantly women. But I have had more resistance from women than I have from men over the course of my career. And that includes even now. I've got some strong men in my corner. I may have mentioned a mentor earlier. That mentor was a man. And, one of the key mentors in my career, Dr. Harold Bishop, who was a professor at the University of Alabama. And I credit him for who I am as a leader today, for pouring into me as a leader. And I try to do the same, prioritizing women, because I just don't think there's enough of women lifting women up. I was participating in a panel, I think it may have been a couple of years ago now, where we were talking about leading while female. And in the book, Leading While Female. So shout out to the authors of that book. It's an amazing book. And one of the questions was, how do I straighten my sister's crown without anyone ever knowing it was crooked? Right. And I just thought that was just such an amazing question, because as women, we sometimes tend to not do that. We want to draw negative attention and call people out for all of the wrong reasons. And I don't see men doing that from my leadership experience. It's really unfortunate that that's not the gap that I see. It's more about women supporting women and women pouring into women. And I'm completely committed to doing that and lead by example in doing that. I think that as women, we have to be mentors. And we have to be mentored, by other women in order to create that safe and brave, courageous space where women can bring their whole selves into that position and be accepted by other women and be lifted up by other women.
Thank you. Dr. Kane, you want to jump in?
Yeah, this conversation is fire. I tell you, I want to jump out of this chair. I agree with everything Dr. Williams said. We have got to support each other as women. And I think one of the reasons why we have male mentors is because there are so few women in this role, right? I, too, have males as mentors. One of them, the fabulous Dr. Dana Bedden, a Black man who remains a superintendent today. He's still instrumental in my life. and another, a white male, is Dr. Kevin Maxwell. Still, I'm talking people who like came to rescue me, right, when I was having trouble, and have always been there, whether I'm having trouble or whether I'm not having trouble, just are always there. That's a mentor. But what I'm going to say is that I chose, as a Black woman going into a district that was 85% white, about 6% Black, I chose to have all men on my leadership team. And guess what? They were all white men. Why did I do that? One, because their familiarity with the district was different from mine. I was new, they were there. And so I let them remain. Second, the elected officials that I had to interact with, I knew going in they weren't going to respect me as a white woman. And my job is to lead this district. My job is to improve outcomes for all students, right? And so I know in order to make certain things happen, there had to be a relationship with the elected officials in that district. Good, bad, or indifferent, you got to know your environment, and you got to know what's going to work where you are leading. So my job was to make sure that the children were first. And in order to do that, I kept an all white male cabinet. Did that last the entire 4 years? No, it did not last the entire 4 years, partly because my right hand, who is like my brother, a white male, went on to lead his own district. But, you know, there were changes. By the time I left, I had an all female, right, cabinet. But there were reasons for those males in the positions that they were in. Was there some difficulty? Absolutely. You know, I've mentioned earlier that I lead I facilitate a woman executive group, educational executives group. And one thing we talk about is how to lead men. And one of the things that we uncovered is, you know, men still in 2023 do a lot of deal making. They get a lot of work done outside of the office. It is not a thing of the past. It still happens, whether it's that they're doing clay shooting, if they're doing golfing, out for drinks, whatever. One of the women in my group, she said, you know, the men were going out to a cigar bar or whatever, and she's a woman, so they didn't invite her, they invited her husband. Our thing is, go to the cigar bar, right? Go golfing. Don't take a back seat. Be in the room. You can be in those environments and still be your authentic self. You got to do what you got to do to make sure that your leadership is known. If it's from where you sit in a room, how you sit in a room, how you jump into a conversation, whether you are leading it or not, how you interact with the people in the room, there is a place for you and still for you to be your authentic self. So leading men, yeah, they're going to cut the deals. My job is to make sure that I'm still there when the deals are cut, whether they are in the boardroom, in the office, or outside of the office. I'm a part of this and I'm leading this. So make your presence known. We tend to, as women, sit back sometimes and let them take the lead. They're having a conversation about basketball or whatever. What do you want to have a conversation about? You're the leader, you started, right? So there are definite advantages to leading men, or all men even, but we got to keep up with that. And we can do it.
Avis, you got Andrea fired up. She was a little laid back. She leaned forward in that chair. She got fired. Woo! So listen, we are going to take some questions from the audience. For those that are watching on all social media platforms, we ask you to put a question in the chat. We ask you if you have a question. The comments are great, but we want to hear from you because we have our own questions. I got a question I want to ask, and this is a funny question because you know I always got to add a little humor to it. I have some divas on the call, Dr. Tessa, Dr. Williams, Dr. Miller, Dr. Kane. I know when I travel, they've asked this question to, I want to say they asked Dr. Maya Angelou this question, or they asked Sonia Sanchez this question. And here's the question: what is always in your bag? What is always in your bag? Somebody told me, Avis, that you ain't serious about working out if you don't have a gym bag. I'm like, what? Well, I guess I must not be serious. I don't take a gym bag. I'm coming there on a mission, an hour, you know, I'm done. So I don't carry a bag all the time, but I'm serious about what I'm doing. So I want to know what's always in your bag when you travel to do whatever you're going to do. If you're going to work, what's always in your bag right now? And I'm gonna tell you what's typically in my bag while you all are thinking about it. I have this spray. It's this lavender spray that I spray on my pillows after, because you know, black folks, when we go into a hotel room, not only before COVID, we clean everything. We pray about everything. I pray, Lord Jesus, whoever slept, whoever had some intimacy in his bed, don't let them demons jump out. We pray for everything. All right. So I typically bring after we clean the spot out, my lavender is always with me. I typically actually have a candle, and I always travel with a book, hardcover book. I'm still hardcover. So I want to hear what's always in your bag when you're on the road.
I'll
Me,
jump
it's
in.
running shoes.
Oh, yeah.
Running shoes. So you nailed it, because I've been and like when I'm packing, that's like the first thing I pack is my workout clothes, and I'm counting the number of days that I'm going to be there to determine how many workout outfits. I've had like all the workout clothes to be like, damn, I forgot to pack something to wear to the conference or to wear to this after hours event. But I'm going to get that run in.
For me, there's two things always in my bag. One is a lip, because we are women and we need to show up as fierce as we can, not just social, not just academically and in the work, but maybe get a lip on, okay? And so I'm known for the lip. But the next thing is a book. I have a saying, I have a t-shirt if you want it, that says, if you're not reading, you are not leading. At the end of the day, as leaders, it is our responsibility and our job to always be stretching ourselves and always be feeding ourselves with new knowledge so that we can serve and show up and give to other people. So a book and a lip, a book and a lip.
I'll go. I always have this little gadget right here, and this is my personal Wi-Fi or you know, the ability to connect, because I have found myself, whether in a hotel, in, you know, a meeting, anything happens, I need to present or I need to access Wi-Fi and I don't have it. So this is always with me, my personal Wi-Fi access.
What you got, Dr. Kane?
And, you know, I mean, wherever I go, I like to listen to Audible. I like to listen to books on tape. So I have my headphones and I got my cell phone and I'm good. I can listen to whatever I need to listen to. I was talking to some students last week and they were talking about all that they had to do. I have a fairly long commute to work. It's like an hour, 15 hour and 20 minutes. And I tell them, I get this little app, it's Natural Reader, and I even listen to papers. So when I got a lot to do or research that I still have to read, I'll put that thing on and it'll read to me while I'm driving and no time is wasted.
Well, I appreciate you all for hanging out today. We have 2 more minutes. I want to give everybody about 30 seconds to wrap up your thoughts from today. Again, I want to thank all of you. I wish you a great Women's History Month. We know we cannot, just like Black History Month, we cannot put Black folks in 28 days or women in 31 days, but I want to honor and celebrate you as you see. Shout out to my mentor, my buddy who gave me the shirt, Loving Her, because Black women deserve to be loved. Thank you all for listening. I want to start with you, Avis, and then Q, Dr. Q, then Dr. Kane, and then just say your final thoughts, Dr. Sutton. Avis, go ahead.
Well, first of all, just thank you. This has been amazing. It's been a blessing for me to be here with these amazing women. So there's a quote by Amy Anderson, and it says, "Here's to strong women. May we know them. May we be them. May we raise them." And so I just want to give a shout out to all of the strong women, and we have to keep the legacy going. Let's pour into our young people.
Thank you, Dr. Queen Miller.
Let me unmute. Again, I have been filled with amazing knowledge today. Thank you for the energy of these beautiful, beautiful women leaders. You've inspired me. And I'll leave with this quote. It's Simon Sinek. And he says that leadership is not a license to do less, but a responsibility to do more. And that's the trouble. Leadership takes work. It takes time and energy. The effects are not always easily measured, and they are not always immediate. But leadership, never forget, is always a responsibility and a commitment to human beings. So I encourage all the women, all the leaders, all the men, those who are here that are destined to serve. And I encourage you to always lead, no matter what, with love. This is God's work. God is love. And I want us to always be in spaces where we're showing and emitting and sharing that love to others, because that's not something you should have to work for, but it's something that is a basic need that you deserve. So thank you so much. El Cambio, me encanta mucho la oportunidad para servir aquí con ustedes. Gracias. Besitos.
Tessa. No, Dr. Kane. Well, go ahead, Tessa. I'm sorry, then Dr. Kane.
Hey, everybody. I'm grateful, honored, and to be with you today. I've met 3 new wonderful women today that I definitely want to connect with. I can't wait to end this so that I can look you up and connect even more. I appreciate what you all had to say. It's fire in my bones, so to speak. But the one thing that, as an interculturalist, being able to navigate difference and ambiguity really becomes key. And one of the things I think that becomes critically important in leadership is, first of all, personal leadership. And personal leadership is leading from the inside out, meaning, in my opinion, we should not be leading others unless we can lead ourselves. So with one of the my favorite quotes, he could be called the father of interculturalism, so to speak. And this quote is, "Culture hides more than it reveals, especially from its participants. The real challenge is not to understand foreign culture, but to understand one's own, to make what we take for granted stand out in perspective. This can be achieved mainly through exposing oneself to foreign ways, through the shock and contrast of difference." Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Shields, for including me in this very important and inspirational conversation today.
Dr. Kane.
Absolutely, and I'll make it quick because I know our time is now, but I echo my sisters. I am so glad to have shared this time with you all. You all are fire. And for all of our audience, guess what? Do your homework and know that you are enough. That cannot be said enough. You are enough. And so give yourself a little bit of a pat on the back. I'll leave you with this one simple quote. It's from a Mexican national person, and it simply says, "They tried to bury us, but they forgot we were seeds." So when they try to bury you, get your nourishment and sprout, spring, do what you came to do. You got it. You are enough.
See, say, Dr. Quee, I thought Dr. Kane was gonna say that in Spanish and impress me. So before we leave, I know I said we were wrapping up. I want to get this last question in because it just came in. And because I run the show and Marina and I run the show, we still got time. So our final question to all the amazing panelists. The question is, what's your #1 book on your shelf? Let me go first. I'm about to do a shameless plug right here. What I learned in the midst of chaos, the making of an Ubuntu teacher. #1 bestseller in every hood, every barrio, every chicken stand, every black church, every mosque, every synagogue. Pick it up at the store near you. #1 book. Close us out. Dr. Q, pull out your book.
You already know, okay? The #1 bestseller on my shelf is The Art of Giving, a memoir and guidebook for urban educators. And it's for all teachers, educators, parents, anybody to understand that this work is about loving and caring about children, period. That's the basis. There's Geneva Gay and Nell Noddings. These are, researchers that are queens that talk about this notion of culturally responsive caring, that at the end of the day, until you care about children and those that serve children, there's nothing else that matters. So love children and the rest will take care of itself. Get it. It's on Amazon, Audible, or DM me and I'll send you a personalized copy. Subscribe to Personally You. So thank you so much for the opportunity. El cambio me encanta.
Dr. Kane, what's your number one book? And then Dr. Tessa and Dr. Williams close us out. Just the book.
Okay, real quick. Right now, I think Racial Literacy by Howard Stevenson. He's a professor at University of Pennsylvania. Helps us to understand how to deal with the microaggressions, the racial incidences that we deal with as marginalized people. It's a good one. Racial Literacy.
Tessa.
Hey, so for me, leading while being a woman, I think that book has already been mentioned. So I want to just state that I'm focusing in and I'm really excited to be a part of this because I'll be hosting the Thought Leadership Conference on May 18th, 17th, and 18th. And so I'll be interviewing it's slipping my Lindsay Davis, who is on ABC World News tonight, and we'll be talking about celebrating women and girls' passion, prowess, and power. So that's the book.
Dr. Williams, close us out.
All right. So my top book right now is Cultures of Belonging by Melinda Wolf. And it's all about just creating inclusiveness within a work culture. And as a new superintendent, it's been top of mind to make sure that all of my team members feel that they belong and that they're being valued and that they're being seen.
It has been a pleasure and honor. Dr. Q Miller, Dr. Andrea Kane, Dr. Tessa Sutton, Dr. Avis Williams, Dr. Marina Gilmore, who's holding down the green room. I appreciate you. I appreciate all the women in my life. I appreciate all the women that poured into me, my teachers, my abuelita, my tia, my aunties, my cousins. I thank you for all the women. We celebrate you. And thank you. I know you all are busy, so I am so excited and honored that you decided to hang out with us today. And for the people that are listening and all the social media platforms, go out and share this story. It will be on YouTube, so you can come back and check it out later on. And also, we want to just also thank our friend Dr. K. And for those that are here, I'm going to show you how you can stay in contact with us. So I'm going to say goodbye to my panelists, but I need everybody to stick around for a couple of minutes. Take care, Q. See you guys later. Take care, take care, take care, take care. And for my people that are still here, I want you to look